Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 85. This venerable one isn't someone you can get rid of so easily with just 1500 gold. The proprietress' voice came with a patronizing smile. Oh, the esteemed cultivator is so generous. 500 taels of gold would indeed make me happy. However, since we're doing business, we need to be polite. How can we drive other customers away? How about this? Our largest private room called Kiwi Pavilion is especially reserved for generous guests like the esteemed cultivator. I'll show you the way. Before she could finish her sentence, the sound of benches, tables, and chairs being smashed could be heard from below. No need. I don't care if it's the Kiwi Pavilion or the Tortoise Pavilion, damn it, this name is such a waste. No, I'll give you 1,000 taels of gold to drive them away. Esteemed cultivator, please don't give me a hard time. You seem to be an educated man, so please be understanding. The proprietress lied without hesitation. She coaxed and said, you're a customer here. If you're not satisfied with the Kiwi Pavilion, I can give you another one. It's smaller, but it's elegant and beautiful. I'll also give you a song and dance entertainment for free. What do you think? No. 1,500 taels. Tell them to scram. The rough voice roared, don't be stubborn. My young master will be angry when he comes. 1,000 taels of gold might be a lot for others, but for Mo Ran, who was once the former emperor of the human realm, it sounds funny. In his previous life, he casually gave Song Kayutong some random treasures to play with that were worth a fortune. Therefore, he wasn't impressed a bit. He just bit his chopsticks and rolled his eyes. He whispered to Chu Wanning with a smile, Shizun, listen to this person. He wants to drive us away for 1,500 gold taels. Chu Wanning glanced at him, then lifted the bamboo curtain of the private room and looked downstairs. The dining hall was crowded with a large group of people. Although they were wearing ordinary clothes, and it was impossible to tell which sect they belonged to, each of them had high-quality treasured saber on their waists. Each of them was leading a fey wolf with saliva dripping from the corners of their mouths. It might not be easy to judge the value of the treasured saber, but this fey wolf was priceless. It was not easy for an ordinary small cultivation sect to own such beasts, but each of them had one. Obviously, they were from an extremely prominent sect. The other guests who had been eating looked at these people in horror, and the hall was silent for a moment. Suddenly, a snow-white light flew into the inn. When everyone saw it clearly, they were stunned at first. Then they all shrank back. Some of the more timid ones even screamed, a great demon, there's a great demon. The one that jumped in was a snow-white wolf fey that was as tall as 3 men standing on top of another. Its eyes were as red as blood and its fur was as bright as silk. It had a pair of wolf fangs that were as long as an adult man's arm. However, on the huge body of this ferocious beast, there was a handsome young man with arrogant eyes sitting leisurely with his legs crossed. The young man was wearing a hunting armor. Under the armor was a bright red robe and the cuffs were embroidered with neat golden threads. He wore a hood and a cluster of soft red tassels hung from the top of the silver lion holding the sun. A jasper bow lay on his knees, which should be his weapon. When those arrogant cultivators saw him, they immediately knelt on one knee, hammered their chests with their hands and said in unison, "Welcome, young master." "All right." With an impatient look on his face, the young man waved his hand. "I asked you to do something, so why is it not done yet? Welcome. Welcome your dog head." Mo Ran laughed and whispered to Chu Wanning, he said they welcome the dog head, so doesn't that make him a dog head himself? The young man sat on the soft neck of the fey wolf with a sullen expression. "Where is the shopkeeper of this shabby inn? Who is he?" Although the proprietress was scared, she still forced herself to calm down and walked forward. She smiled apologetically and said, "I'm sorry to have insulted the young master, but I am the owner of this small inn." "Oh." The young man glanced at her. I want to stay in an inn, but I'm not used to crowds. You tell the other guests to leave and I'll pay for any loss you may incurred. But young master, I know you would be in a difficult position. This is for you to apologize on my behalf. If you really don't want to, then forget it. The young man then threw a brocade pouch to the proprietress. When she opened it, there was a pile of golden 9 turns origin pills. These pills could greatly increase one's cultivation within 10 days. One pill on the market cost more than 2,000 gold taels. The proprietress took it. At first, her expression changed because of the other party's generosity, and then she quietly sighed in relief. No cultivator would refuse such a good thing. It would be reasonable to ask them to leave using this as compensation. The proprietress went off and apologized one by one to the other customers and handed over the compensation gifts. The young man yawned and looked down at the group of his disciples with disdain. He said, "You're all useless. You still need me to do things personally." The disciples looked at each other and said, "Young master is wise. Young master is mighty." The other guests quickly dispersed. Except for Chu Wanning and Mo Ran, who didn't care about money and pills, the others took their things and left the inn without any complaints and went to other inns to stay. The proprietress then turned back and said, "Young master, they've all left except for 2 guests who said that it's late. One of them is unwell and doesn't want to go elsewhere. You see. Forget it, forget it. I won't argue with a sickly person." The young man waved his hand happily. "As long as they don't disturb me." Hearing this, the sickly person Chu Wanning was speechless. The proprietress immediately smiled and said warmly, "Young master is really a kind person. It's late now. Do you want to rest or eat something first?" The young man said, "I'm hungry. I don't want to rest yet. I want something to eat." "If young master wants to eat, then this inn will definitely serve the best dishes. Our chef is best at making crab meats, lion's head, crystal meat. Lion's head to vent your anger." The young man was obviously not a southerner and didn't like southern food. Hearing the name of the dish, he was stunned for a moment. Then he frowned and waved his hand. "No, I don't understand that. What's all this nonsense?" They originally thought that he was a son of an aristocratic family, but now it seemed that he might be a rich merchant. The proprietress said, "Then what do you want to eat? As long as this inn knows what it is, we can make it." "Well said." The young man pointed at his followers. "Cut 5 jin of beef for each of them. Also, give me 10 jin of beef, 1 jin of wine and 2 lamb legs. That's about it. It's too late to eat too much. Just a little to fill the stomach." Mo ran, wow. He wanted to turn around and laugh at this young man's bucket-like appetite with his master, but he saw that Chu Wanning was staring at the young man. There seemed to be some unfathomable glint in his eyes. Mo Ran subconsciously asked, "Shizun, do you know him?" "Yes." He originally just asked casually, but he didn't expect that Chu Wanning really did know him. He couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What? Then who is he?" "The only son of the Rufeng sect leader, Nangong Si," Chu Wanning said softly. Mo Ran thought to himself. No wonder Chu Wanning knew him. After all, Chu Wanning was a guest elder of the Rufeng sect in Linyi. He must have seen the sect leader's son before. It was also no wonder that he didn't know him. In his previous life, when he massacred the Rufeng sect, this Nangong Si had already died of an illness. At that time, he thought that the sect leader's son was an invalid. He didn't expect that when he saw him today, he would actually be such a lively, healthy, and arrogant young man. So, how did he die of an illness? Was it a sudden illness? Nangong Si ate happily downstairs. In a short while, he devoured 2 lamb legs and 10 kilograms of beef like a whirlwind sweeping away clouds. He also drank several bowls of wine. Moran was speechless as he watched from upstairs. Shizun, isn't the Rufeng sect the most cultured? What's wrong with this young master? He seems even worse than our Shuemengmeng. Chu Wanning pushed his head back as he leaned over. His face was still tilted as he looked at the scene below. Don't randomly give your fellow disciples nicknames. Moran chuckled twice. Just as he was about to say something, Chu Wanning tapped his head with the tip of his finger and a fluttering sleeve fell on his face. The cloth was light, like silk but not actually silk, its texture is like satin but it's not actually satin. It was cool to the touch like water. He couldn't help but think of something and stare blankly for a moment. In the room earlier, he was pulling off Chu Wanning's clothes while in a delirious state. After tugging for a long time, he still couldn't tear them off. He thought that Chu Wanning was wearing tight clothes. But now that he looked carefully at the material of the clothes, Moran suddenly recognized that it was the frozen mist silk produced by the Kunlun Taxu Palace. The Kunlun Taxu Palace was the most aloof and reclusive sect among the cultivators in the upper cultivation world. All its disciples entered the sect at the age of 5. After a year, they had to enter the Kunlun sanctuary to cultivate in seclusion. They could only come out when they formed their own spiritual core. Although the spiritual core was innate and was already within them, the cultivation was just to summon it out. But this takes a very long time, usually 10 to 15 years. During this time, unrelated people were not allowed to enter. Therefore, the disciples' food and clothing became troublesome. The food was still alright because the Kunlun sanctuary was adjacent to the Wangmu Lake. The disciples of the Taxu Palace could go into the lake to catch food every day, but they couldn't weave their own clothes, right? Therefore, the frozen mist silk was born. The clothes made from the silk were not only as soft as smoke, but also had a dust-repelling spell attached to them. They would not be contaminated by dust. Unless they were splashed with stains like blood, they did not need to be washed. But the most amazing thing was that the frozen mist silk would change according to the body shape of its owner. This was indispensable for the disciples of the Taxu Palace. They entered the Kunlun sanctuary at the age of 5 and could only come out at the age of 15 or 20. During this long period of time, from a child to a tall and handsome youth, the clothes made of the frozen mist silk could grow with them and thus avoiding the embarrassment of not fitting into their clothes after their seclusion. But, why would Chu Wanning wear clothes made of this material? Moran narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, a spark lit up in his mind. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. It seemed that he had thought that something is amiss from the beginning. What was it? Sorry to disturb you. May I ask where the shopkeeper is? A youthful voice suddenly interrupted Moran's thoughts. The voice was vigorous but it was very kind and polite. Looking down, it was the group of disciples of the Rufeng sect who had appeared at the Xianyuan pavilion earlier in the day. Their leader, Hizou, was holding a sword. The hilt of his sword lifted the curtain and half of his body poked in. Aren't they Ye Wangzi's retainers? Moran immediately became spirited. The Rufeng sect had 72 cities and it's not unusual for some of its disciples to not know each other. As for Nangongsi, he was sitting alone in a private room with his back to the door. Thus, when the group of youths swept their eyes over the disciples in the inn, they did not recognize any familiar face. Ye Wangzi versus Nangongsi, this was going to be a good show. I'm really sorry. Tonight, our inn has been fully booked. The proprietress hurriedly went over to greet them while secretly cursing herself for forgetting to lock the door. Esteemed cultivators, please accept my apologies and go to another inn to have a look. The youth in the lead revealed an awkward expression. Ai, how could this be? I just went to look at the other inns, and they were all filled with people. We have a fragile and weak girl here. She hasn't rested for a long time, so we want to find a better place for her to sleep. Innkeeper, I'll have to trouble you to ask the person who booked the inn whether or not he can give up a few rooms. This. I'm afraid he won't be willing. The youth bowed and courteously pleaded, "Shopkeeper, please go and ask him. If he isn't willing, then we'll understand." Before the proprietress could say anything, one of the followers of Nangongsi at the table near the door suddenly slammed the table and stood up. He angrily said, "What's there to ask? Get out, get out. Don't disturb our young master's meal." "That's right. You're wearing the clothes of the Rufeng sect, yet you have the nerve to sleep with a girl. Don't you think you're shaming your sect?" The youth didn't expect that they would misunderstand. In a flash, his face turned red and he angrily said, "Fellow cultivators, why are you slandering others? My Rufeng sect is upright, so we naturally wouldn't do such a thing. This girl was saved by my young master out of kindness, so how can you speak such nonsense? Your young master?" Nangongsi's attendant glanced at the private room and saw that the young master was still casually drinking his wine and seemed to be tacitly agreeing to his actions of chasing people away. Thus, he relaxed and raised his voice to sneer. "Everyone knows that there is only one young master in the Rufeng sect, so who is the one you were talking about?" "This humble one is Yewangzi of the Rufeng sect." A gentle and elegant voice came from outside the door. The youths all turned their heads. "Young master yet?" Yewangzi was dressed in black and his handsome face seemed more delicate and pretty under the candle light. He walked into the inn with his hands behind his back. Behind him was a woman wearing a veil, revealing a pair of anxious and gentle eyes. It was Song Kayutong. When Mo Ran saw her, the veins on his forehead suddenly jumped. Enemies on a narrow road, how could it be her again? When Nangongsi's followers saw that the person who came was actually Yewangzi, they were all stunned at first, but then a few of them lost their cool and revealed looks of disgust. Yewangzi was the adopted son of the Rufeng sect's first elder and belonged to one of the Rufeng sect's 72 cities called Dark City. As the name implied, Dark City was good at nurturing shadow guards. The sect leader of the Rufeng sect had originally trained him to be the next leader of the shadow guards, but because Yewangzi's foundation was not suitable for the shadow guard cultivation method, he gradually transferred to the main city and became the sect leader's right-hand man. Because Yewangzi was a shadow guard in his early years, he acted in a low-key manner, so very few people knew his name. However, the sect leader regarded him very highly. In these years, there were even rumors that Yewangzi was the sect leader's illegitimate son. Perhaps because of this reason, the young master Nangongsi had always been at odds with Yewangzi. The young master did not like him, so how could his followers have a good impression of young master yet? Originally, as juniors, they absolutely could not offend young master Ye, but this group of people were all Nangongsi's trusted aides and directly received orders from Nangongsi. Thus, the atmosphere was stiff for a long time. Finally, there was a gruff person who sneered and said, "Young master Ye, please go back. I'm afraid there is no room for you in this inn today." "Young master, since they said there is no room, then let's find another place." Song Kayutong stretched out her slender fingers and pulled on Yewangzi's clothes. She said in a panic, "Besides, this place is very expensive. I really don't dare to ask young master to spend more money." Mo Ran heard these two sentences from upstairs and rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, this woman really uses this weak and pitiful tone wherever she goes. First, she tricked me, and now she's tricking Yewangzi. Just as Yewangzi was about to speak, a huge white shadow suddenly rushed out from inside and attacked Yewangzi from behind. Song Kayutong cried out in alarm, "Be careful, young master. Aou! Woo woo woo." Following a loud and clear howl, a snow-white fey wolf sprinted madly, circling around Yewangzi crazily. Everyone was silent. Yewangzi lowered his eyes and looked at the white-furred fey wolf that was as tall as 3 people, but was currently sticking to the ground and rolling around. He said in astonishment, "Nao Beijin." This fey wolf was Nangongsi's mount. It was named Nao Beijin because its eyes were as red as agate, its fur was as white as snow and its claws had a touch of gold. Since Naobajin was here, Nangongsi must have come as well. Yewangzi raised his hand and patted Naobajin's head. He looked around. Shea. The bamboo curtain was pulled aside by a hand. The sleeves were bright red and there was even golden thread wrapped around the edges. Half of his impatient face was revealed. Nangongsi had his arms crossed and was leisurely leaning against the side of the room. In his hand was a pot of soju wine. He glanced at Yewangzi and sneered. Interesting. Why do I run into you everywhere I go? Are you following me around? If we provoke others to gossip about us, where will I put my face? End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 86. This venerable one's ex-wife isn't low maintenance. Yewangzi was obviously at a loss for words, but he didn't get angry. After a while, he said, "You're mistaken. I was not following you around. I was ordered by the sect leader to come to Xianyuan Pavilion to buy something." When Mo Ran and Chu Wanning heard this, they looked at each other. The godly weapon. Nangongsi shook the red clay wine pot in his hand, his expression gloomy. "If father wants to buy something, why would he bother you? Do you think I don't know how to do it for him?" "AC, that's not what I meant. Who told you to call me that?" Nangongsi lowered his eyebrows, his eyes like lightning. "Young master, don't think that you can be so reckless in front of me just because father was blind and close to you. It's disgusting. I called you that because the sect leader wanted me to. If you feel disgusted about it, you can tell him yourself." Yewangzi paused, then said after a while, "What's the use of getting angry at me? Don't use father against me." Nangong Si took a deep breath, slightly restraining his anger. His black eyes were extremely cold, just like the silver moon hanging high in the sky, filled with smoke. "Young master, yet." He seemed to deliberately drag out these three words. "Father told you to call me AC, but I'm afraid he misunderstood your position in the sect, but you should know your place. Don't open a dye shop just because you were given 3 colors. Even if you dye yourself red and purple, you can't stand shoulder to shoulder with me." Yewangzi's gentlemanly face seemed to flash with a trace of dullness. His thick eyelashes drooped down and he quietly said, "Young master is right, but this has never thought of standing shoulder to shoulder with young master." The change in title made Nangongsi feel slightly more comfortable. He raised his hand and gulped down a few mouthfuls of spicy soju, but he didn't seem to have gotten drunk. He then stared at Yewangzi for a while, snorted through his nose and waved his hand. "Even if I did, you wouldn't dare. Look at you right now, how can you be?" He suddenly realized that there were too many people here, and he almost said something he shouldn't have said. He suddenly pursed his lips, stopped speaking. Yewangzi, on the other hand, even after all this humiliation, still had his eyes downcast and no one could see whether his eyes were angry or humiliated. The atmosphere was momentarily awkward to the extreme. Nangongsi looked around awkwardly for a moment, then his eyes fell on the woman behind Yewangzi and as if to cover up the mistake he had almost made, he coughed, raised his chin at the woman and asked Yewangzi, "You said you saved her?" "Yes." "Where is she from?" "Don't randomly save someone whose origin is unknown." "It's all right. She was bought from Xianyuan Pavilion." Nangongsi didn't care about the Xianyuan Pavilion's auctions, so he didn't bother to inquire. But when he heard that Song Kayutong was bought from there, he couldn't help but be surprised. His originally lazy and perfunctory eyes suddenly sharpened, and he stared at Song Kayutong's face. After a while, he said, "Is this an enslavement bone or a butterfly-boned beauty feast?" In the cultivation world, there were only 2 kinds of people who could be sold openly. In addition to the butterfly-boned beauty feast, the other was the enslavement bone. The enslavement bone is the child born from a human and a demon. Because people fear the demonic nature of such alien race, once it was detected, their genkai would be destroyed and their shoulder blades would be marked with the slave curse, reducing them to life of servitude. However, the price of enslavement bone wasn't high and there was nothing rare about it. Generally, it was used to serve tea to the big sex, or bought by rich merchants to play with. Since it was sold by the Xianyuan pavilion, it shouldn't be this kind of thing. Sure enough, Ye Wangzi said, it's a butterfly-boned beauty feast. Nangongsi became interested. He bypassed Ye Wangzi, walked in front of Song Kaiyutong and paced around her in a circle to check her out. Then, he frowned and said, "Why is this thing lame? Is it defective? She was injured when she was caught. She had been treated but hasn't fully healed yet." Ye Wangzi paused. "So, we can't go far and would want to stay here for the night." Nangongsi didn't comment. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly moved close to Song Kaiyutong's neck and sniffed. His action was very similar to that of an untamed wolf. Song Kaiyutong was frightened by his lecherous action and her face turned pale. She clutched her lapel and swayed in place. "It doesn't smell any different from an ordinary person." He rubbed his nose and sneezed. "There's also the scent of rouge." Nangongsi waved his hand and casually asked, "How much?" 50 million. Silver. Gold. Nangongsi suddenly opened his eyes wide. "Ye Wangzi, are you crazy? Do you know how many top-grade whetstones you can refine with 50 million gold? You fucking bought a woman for me? Do you think my Rufeng sex money isn't money? I didn't spend the sex money." Ye Wangzi paused for a moment and then said, "Nor did I bought it for you. You." Nangongsi's anger that had just subsided rose again. His expression changed. "That's very benevolent of you." He turned his head and glared at Song Kaiyutong. The more he stared, the more he found her to be unpleasant to the eye. Especially the veil that covered her face. No matter how he looked at it, it was annoying. He immediately ordered, "You, take off that rag on your face." Song Kaiyutong was frightened. She tightly grabbed Ye Wangzi's sleeve and shrunk behind him. Her voice sounded extremely pitiful. "Young master Ye, I don't want to." Ye Wangzi's slender figure was not as sturdy and tall as Nangongsi, but when he slightly raised his head and looked at Nangongsi, he was fearless. "Since she doesn't want to, young master shouldn't force her." "Nonsense. Since she was saved by you, she owed my Rufeng sect her life. She must do as I say. Take it off." "She was saved by me. From the moment I saved her, I returned her freedom." Ye Wangzi said, "Young master, please don't impose on her." "Ye Wangzi, you're such a good person." Nangongsi was so angry that he banged on the doorframe. "What do you take me for? Today, I'm going to fight with you. If I say that I want her to take it off, then I want her to take it off. If she takes off her veil, then I'll let you stay here. If she doesn't take it off, then fuck off." Ye Wangzi almost imperceptibly sighed. He turned to Song Kaiyutong and said, "Let's go." This time, Nangongsi wasn't the only one who was dismayed by this. Ye Wangzi had the holy weapon on him. No matter what, they couldn't just let him leave like this. Chu Wanning immediately said, "Go stop him." Okay. Mo Ran also had the same intention, but after a long time, he suddenly froze. "Shizun, if we stop him, where will he stay? He wanted to stay in the inn to rest. Give him half of our room." Mo Ran didn't know why, but his expression suddenly became somewhat awkward. "I'm afraid that's a bit inappropriate." Chu Wanning slightly raised his eyelids. "What's wrong?" "Shizun may not know, but it's best that the two of us don't stay in the same room as him. Moreover, he won't agree to it. Because this Ye Wangzi, he's actually a..." Just as Mo Ran was getting to the point, they suddenly heard Nangongsi kick over a table. Cups, bowls, and plates fell to the ground. Then, he suddenly pulled over a stool and placed his leg on it. He angrily said, "Who allowed you to leave as you please? I think you've gone against the heavens. Get your ass back here. Everyone." This time, even Nangongxi's personal attendants had somewhat awkward expressions on their faces. "Wasn't this? Young master, didn't you wanted him to hurry and get lost?" Ye Wangzi seemed to have long been used to Nangongxi's unreasonable tantrums. He planned to pretend that he didn't hear his roar. He patted Song Kaiyutong's shoulder, indicating that she shouldn't pay attention to the crazy person behind them. "Ye Wangzi! Ye Wangzi! Ye Wangshi!" The veins on Ye Wangzi's forehead couldn't help but throb twice. He finally couldn't help but turn around. Unexpectedly, he was met with a wine flask. His pupils suddenly shrank. Ye Wangzi was just about to dodge when suddenly, a white figure flashed in front of him. "Ah! A delicate cry of pain shocked everyone present. Ye Wangzi and Nangongxi's expressions were even more puzzled. It turned out that in a flash, it was Song Kaiyutong who blocked in front of Ye Wangzi. That heavy red clay wine flask had ruthlessly smashed into her forehead. In an instant, blood flowed out. Her pair of lustrous white jade hands trembled as she touched the blood. Immediately, tears fell from her eyes from the pain. "Don't touch it, let me see your injury." "I'm fine." "It's fine as long as the young master didn't get hurt. If you want to talk, then talk. Why did you have to throw a bottle?" Ye Wangzi's tone was scorching. He looked at Nangongxi reproachfully, then said to his attendant, "Bring me the Jinchuang ointment." "Young master, the Jinchuang ointment that we brought is all used up." That attendant said softly, "How about I run out and buy some more?" Nangongxi also didn't expect this to happen. Although he forced himself to remain calm, his eyes still revealed a trace of regret. With a straight face, he stammered, I have some here." "Alan, bring me my medicine pouch." Ye Wangzi was a little angry. He pursed his lips and ignored him. Holding the small medicine bottle, Nangongxi froze in place for a long time. Seeing that Ye Wangzi didn't turn around to look at him, Nangongxi couldn't bear to lose face. He simply shoved the medicine bottle to Song Kaiyutong. "It's for you. Use it or leave it as you like." Song Kaiyutong was like a little deer that had lost its head out of fear. She first looked towards Ye Wangzi with trembling eyes. Seeing that he didn't stop her and only remained silent, she finally put away the Jinchuang ointment like she was trying to keep the peace. She even lowered her head towards the person who had injured her and said softly, "Thank you, Nangongongzi." Nangongxi was stunned. He didn't expect that the girl he almost toyed with would actually thank him. Then, he waved his hand and awkwardly coughed, "It's fine." That night, Ye Wangzi and his group finally decided to stay the night. During that night at Fragrance Inn, several candles flickered like the stars that were in chaos. Mo Ran sat by the window with his chin resting on his hands. He seemed a little distracted. It had been nearly 2 years since his rebirth. The progression of many things was very different from how they happened in his previous life. Seeing the same people doing different things threw him off a bit. Song Kaiyutong, Ye Wangzi, Buletin Gui. These people and things that he couldn't have been more familiar with in his previous life all appeared once again in his life as time passed. However, in this life, he would never take Song Kaiyutong as his wife again. As for Ye Wangzi, this person would soon become famous all over the world. He would become the second most powerful expert in the cultivation world after Chu Wanning. There was also Buletin Gui. Thinking of the saber that had accompanied him in his previous life, his heart became restless. "Shizun. What's the matter? You've already been drawing this talisman for an hour. Why haven't you finished yet?" "It's done." As Chu Wanning spoke, he carefully dipped the tip of his brush in cinnabar and made the last few strokes with the help of a lantern. An extremely intricate dragon appeared on the paper. Mo Ran leaned over to take a look. What is this? Rising Dragon Array, Chu Wanning said. What does it do? It can see all the traces of spells in the surroundings, big or small. If that mysterious person wants to test the essence of the spiritual core using the holy weapon, he must leave a mark on the weapon. Whether the appearance of this weapon is a coincidence or an elaborate design on his part, we'll know immediately. Wow, why didn't Shizun use such a great talisman in the Xianyuan pavilion? I'll awaken the Rising Dragon Array. You'll understand when you see it. Chu Wanning pierced his fingertip and wiped one of the dragon scales. The little yellow dragon on the paper instantly overflowed with golden light, and its eyes and tail began to move. Chu Wanning said, "Are you a true dragon?" A shrill voice rang out from the paper, "That's right, that's right. This venerable one is a true dragon." "How can you say that? Stupid mortal. Why don't you believe me? If you can jump out of the paper, I'll recognize you as a true dragon. What's so difficult about that? Just you wait for this venerable one." "Heh." A golden light flashed and a mighty little dragon the size of a palm suddenly jumped out of the paper. It shook its head and wagged its tail, bared its fangs and brandished its claws and proudly flew around Chu Wanning. It made a ruckus and said, "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, I'm a big true dragon, a big true dragon, I have many little secrets, little secrets. I have many secrets, but I won't tell you, won't tell, won't tell, won't tell, won't tell, tell, you." Chu Wanning used his clear eyes to coldly glance at the little loach. He covered it with his hand and expressionlessly said to Mo Ran, "Do you understand now?" "Mo Ran, I think I do." "Let go of me. You stupid mortal. You're messing with my whiskers." Chu Wanning raised his hand and rudely tapped its reverse scale, the one that was stained with blood. "Shut up and get to work." End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 87. This venerable one doesn't want you to take any more disciples. The little dragon came and went like the wind. In just a few minutes, it came back from the window and shouted, "I found it, I found it. There are many traces of magic in this inn, wa ha ha ha. Little Loach, why are you shouting so loudly? Are you afraid that the people next door can't hear what you're saying?" Mo Ran leaned on the table and touched the little dragon's body with his fingers. The dragon swung its tail and hit the back of his hand. However, it was made of paper after all. Not only did it not hurt, it even tickled. "You annoying gigolo, don't touch me. I'm not married yet. If I let you touch me for no reason, how can I be a true dragon in the future?" Mo Ran laughed and said, What? What? You're a dragon made of paper and you want to get married? Wadash. Poo poo poo. You're the one made of paper. You dog. Why are you calling me a dog, too? Don't tell me your surname is Shwet. This venerable one's surname is Shwet? Humph, you're stupid. This venerable one is the famous dragon who created the world. When I open my eyes, it's daytime. When I close my eyes, it's the night. When I exhale, it's summer. When I inhale, it's winter. This venerable do not change thy name, this venerable one is Zuyin. I don't understand. Way. The little dragon was so angry that it kept spinning around. It used its 2-finger wide head to hit the candlestick. It hit the candlestick and red wax flickered. Mo Ran quickly went to help it. However, when he reached out his hand, it was bitten by the little dragon. Unfortunately, the paper teeth didn't hurt or itch. Mo Ran pulled the dragon's tail and threw it aside. It went up to the air and stuck to Chu Wanning's collar where it became listless. Chu Wanning, the little dragon raised a whisker and weakly poked Chu Wanning's clothes. That bastard hit me. Chu Wanning was too lazy to talk nonsense with it. He pulled it down and casually slapped it on the table. What kind of enchantments are there outside? Humph, call this venerable one, the dragon prince 3 times. If you call me that, I'll. Chu Wanning stared at it coldly, speak. After being insulted, the little dragon was so angry that its body swelled and its dragon whiskers soared into the sky. Its pair of mung bean-like eyes glared at Chu Wanning in anger. Its noble dragon mouth was also half open as it panted heavily. After a while, it actually spat out a large mouthful of ink. Chu Wanning narrowed his eyes. If you waste any more ink, I'll burn you. As he spoke, he grabbed its tail and pretended to drag it into the fire. I'll make you a real torch dragon. All right, we're good. You're amazing. You're amazing. I'll talk. I'll say it, okay. Really? The little dragon spat a few times and spit out a few ink droplets. It muttered in a loud voice, you're so fierce. No wonder you still don't have a wife no matter how many years it's been since I last saw you. Huh. Mo Ran blinked and stole a glance at Chu Wanning. He smiled evilly and said, didn't Shizun said that you have a wife? Chu Wanning ignored him. He frowned and shouted at the little dragon, you talk too much. Hurry up and write. Humph. Stinky man. With a plop, the little dragon laid down on the rice paper that had already been spread out. It used its transcendence energy to condense the ink in its claws and hummed as it drew crooked dog-crawling talismans on the paper. It was no wonder that the little dragon couldn't directly dictate what spells it saw. Because the intelligence of a paperhead was limited, it couldn't distinguish what the original spell by its residual marks. It could only scribble out what it had seen. Fortunately, Chu Wanning was able to identify them. As he lowered his eyes, he slowly said the name of each spell. The little dragon drew a waning moon. Chu Wanning, calming spell. There's someone here who can't sleep. The little dragon drew a 7 stars array. Star manipulation spell. Someone has set up a barrier here. The little dragon drew a rouge box. The glowing face spell. Mo Ran burst out laughing. He raised his hand and said, I know this. It's a spell that girls use to beautify their skin at night. It's that butterfly-boned beauty feast, right? Chu Wanning didn't comment. It seemed that he was a little anxious because he had drawn so many insignificant spell marks. His slender fingers tapped twice on the wooden table. He frowned and said, draw the next one. The little dragon drew a heart again. Mo Ran asked curiously, what is this? Mind-calming spell. Chu Wanning said irritably, it's useless. Someone is meditating. Next. The little dragon mumbled and drew a dog head again. Beast taming spell. Chu Wanning held his forehead, you, pick the important ones to draw. Don't draw those that are applied to the face, to the dog or to coax people to sleep. Next. The little dragon raised its head and glared, you're really picky. Draw. Fearing that it would be thrown onto the candlestick and become the real torch dragon, the paper dragon could only angrily use its 2 soft claws to draw a very complicated formation on the paper. At first glance, it looked very mysterious and profound. It looks like there are 2 circles and then there's a cross, and then there's a vertical bar that goes straight down. It looks like the yin and yang 8 trigrams. Mo Ran opened his eyes wide, Shizun, is this what the mysterious person left on the weapon? No. Chu Wanning glanced at it and felt a little pain in his forehead, it's the voice-changing spell. Oh? What does it do? Some people are born dissatisfied with their voice, or want to change their voice for other reasons. The voice-changing spell can do that. It's not a difficult spell. Chu Wanning paused and said, but the voice-changing spell will damage the throat if used for a long time. It's often difficult to restore the original voice then. It would be strange if someone would actually want to use it. Mo Ran listened and smiled, well, it's not really strange. Chu Wanning sighed and was about to say the next one. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something. His eyes became misty and he suddenly turned to look at Mo Ran. What do you mean? Do you know something? What do I know? I just think that it's normal for someone to be dissatisfied with their own voice. Maybe it's that Miss Song. Maybe she originally had a rough and unpleasant voice and wanted to make it more pleasing to the ear. Chu Wanning flicked his sleeves and said, "You're always thinking about nonsense." He turned to the small dragon and said, "Look for the next one." The small dragon drew another heart. Mo Ran said, "Oh, didn't Shizun say that the mind-calming spell doesn't need to be drawn again?" "Bah, you're just a kid. What do you know?" The little dragon glared at him angrily and slapped the heart with its tail, leaving an ink mark on it. Then, it rubbed it away and painted the entire heart black. "What's this? Black heart spell?" Chu Wanning seemed to be embarrassed. After a moment of silence, he said, "No. It should be the love spell." "What is that?" "It's similar to the love pill sold at the Xianyuan pavilion." Chu Wanning said, "It compels the mind and makes them fall in love with themselves. It's usually used by women." Mo Ran opened his eyes wide. "It can't be? Could it be that Song Kayutong's? How would I know about this?" Chu Wanning seemed very angry. He flicked his sleeves and said, "It's other people's feelings. Why do you care so much? If they want to mess around, let them be. But Chu Wanning, are you really not interested in this love spell?" The little dragon wagged its tail and said happily, "I think this spell is very interesting. If you're willing to call me Dragon Prince 3 times, I'll." Chu Wanning lowered his eyes and said murderously, "Shut up and draw the next one." "Humph. You'll regret it. Are you going to draw or not?" The little dragon didn't draw anything anymore. It sat down and scratched its belly with its short claws. Chu Wanning said coldly, "What's wrong? Are you out of ink?" "Stupid, there's no more spell to draw." The little dragon rolled its eyes. "I've already drawn so many spells and you still think it's not enough? There's no more, that's all. Besides these, this inn is clean. There's no more spells." Hearing this, Chu Wanning and Mo Ran's expressions changed slightly. Mo Ran asked, "That's all? That's all?" Chu Wanning said, "There's no spell to detect the essence of spiritual core." "No." The master and disciple looked at each other with a look of disbelief on their faces. If the mysterious entity wanted to use the Swanyan Pavilion gathering to find a new spiritual essence, he must have left a detection spell on the holy weapon. But now, it seemed that the holy weapon was clean and that there was no spell attached to it. Could it be that they had misunderstood from the beginning? That the appearance of this bulletin Gui had nothing to do with the fake cushion? When the little dragon saw that the two of them became silent, it suddenly jumped into the air, circled around and grunted, "Hey, you should pay attention to this venerable one." This venerable one was very tired from drawing things. Would anyone give this venerable one a round of applause? Perhaps because Chu Wanning was irritated, seeing that it was still so noisy, he waved his sleeve and raised his hand, summoning a yellow talisman in the air. The little dragon saw this and screamed again and again, "I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it." But in the blink of an eye, it was sucked in by the talisman and became a picture on the paper. Chu Wanning pointed with his fingertips again, and the dragon on the picture slowly disappeared. Before the small dragon completely disappeared though, it blinked at Chu Wanning in humiliation. Chu Wanning said, "I'll call you if there's anything." The small dragon cried bitterly and said, "If there's something, Zhong Win, if there's nothing, Xia Yingchun." Chu Wanning, you're so mean. Go back to where you came from." Chu Wanning, who had been talking to it nicely, became angry after hearing this. He folded the talisman in half, flattened it with his palm and put it into his sleeve. That night, Chu Wanning slept on the bed while Mo Ran slept on the floor. Both were a little preoccupied. They didn't expect that there was no spell put on the holy weapon at all. Did the mysterious person know of another method to detect the essence of spiritual core that they didn't know about? Or, was the person in such a hurry that he didn't intend to spend more time finding the people with the strongest spiritual energy? Mo Ran. Chu Wanning called out in the dark. Mo Ran naturally responded, yes. We will return to Shizun Peak tomorrow. Mo Ran suddenly opened his eyes. What? If that person can afford to miss the gathering at Xianyuan Pavilion, it could mean that he has another method of going about this. I'm afraid there won't be any results if we continue to investigate like this. Let's go back to the Shizun Peak first. I'll ask the sect leader to send a secret message to the other 9 sects and ask them to check if there are any wood spiritual essences in their sects. If there are, we'll protect them first. It's better than waiting for something to happen. How could that work? What if that mysterious man is one of the leaders of the other sects? It's very unlikely. Even if he is, it doesn't matter. He already knows that we're tracking him, so this matter won't make a difference. Then how can Shizun make those sect leaders to listen to Uncle? Mo Ran asked point blank. Is Shizun going to tell them everything? That's not necessary, and they may not believe it. Chu Wanning said lightly, I have my own way. Mo Ran asked curiously, what way? Recruiting disciples. I will tell the sect leader to let the other sects know about the frequent breach in the Ghost Realm's barrier and the harm it could bring. That elder Yu Heng of Shizun Peak will be accepting about 5 disciples and teach them about erecting the Shangqing barrier, ghost-slaying enchantments and other barrier techniques. Chu Wanning continued calmly, those sects have invited me many times to be an advisor particularly on these techniques. If I put the word out that I am willing to teach these things, I'm not afraid that they won't come. I'll only take in disciples with exceptional spiritual prowess. In order to select talents, those sect leaders will have to subsequently check the spiritual core of all their disciples, and with that our goal will be achieved. Mo Ran did not agree. In the darkness, his face turned green. You want to take in more disciples? Let's leave it to fate. Chu Wanning turned over, seeming to finally be a little sleepy, and his voice softened. I'll let them report their names when they find them and then let them learn the normal barrier techniques by themselves. After 3 years, if there's really someone among them who can persevere, then I'll take them in. In the darkness, hearing the gradually drowsy words of the person on the bed, Mo Ran felt as if he had kicked over a jar of vinegar in his chest, so sour that his heart ached. Taking in more disciples? In the past life, you only took in 3 disciples as you were very selective. Why aren't you as picky in this life? How can you just take them in like that? Several times, Mo Ran attempted to talk Chu Wanning out of this decision, but before the words even leave his lips, he got silent. Chu Wanning was completely oblivious to Mo Ran's jealousy, and fell asleep. The night was very cold. Mo Ran got up, put on a coat, and softly called to Chu Wanning a few times. Seeing that he did not respond, he quietly pushed open the door and left the bedroom. The walkway of the inn was quiet, with only a few red silk lanterns glowing with a faint light. The light was reflected on the wooden floor, creating ripples of orange reflections. Chu Wanning had already finished testing his resonance with Bullet and Gui, but Mo Ran have not. If a holy weapon is within 100 feet of its owner, it could be summoned back to its owner's side by casting a spell. At that time in the Xianyuan Pavilion, Mo Ran did not have time to test whether the sword was his weapon from the previous life, so how could he miss this opportunity now? A layer of blood-red light floated on the tip of his finger. Slowly lowering his eyelashes, Mo Ran whispered, "Bullet and Gui, come." Suddenly, a muffled sound of a blade suddenly rang out in the distance. The sound was very soft, but it shook his eardrums, like a heavy hammer hitting his heart. Mo Ran suddenly opened his eyes. Bullet and Gui. It was Bullet and Gui. The saber was struggling, crying for blood. The low roar seemed to be separated by layers of blood waves, rolling in the mortal world, rushing towards him. He could almost hear Bullet and Gui wailing, shouting hoarsely that it was trapped, imprisoned by something that Moran did not know. It could feel that its owner was calling it, but it could not answer the summons. Something was missing, cutting off the connection between him and the holy weapon. But they had a pact, they had seen the beauty of the rivers and the mountain high above. They had waited for death together and felt the last bit of warmth at Wushan Hall. The man and the holy weapon were still connected. Their flesh might be torn apart by some kind of force, but their veins were still joined together. Moran's eyes were wet and red as he muttered, "Bullet and Gui. It's you. Why can't you come to me? Who is stopping you?" It's... Creak. There was a low sound of something being pushed. But in this breathless darkness, it sounded as loud as a clap of thunder. End chapter.